Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. And this is the truth about Michael Brown. Again, I don't do any of these videos to take away from the loss of life or the mourning or the grieving that the families may in fact be doing and are more than likely doing with the tragic death of Michael Brown. But as a social critic and somebody who professionally criticizes our society and culture, I call it like I see it. And this is the truth regarding the fatal death and shooting of Michael Brown. Notice how the Obama administration always mysteriously goes from the spotlight to a backseat position anytime the president does something extremely controversial. Let me give you an example. In early 2012, the President of the United States passed an anti-congressional and anti-constitutional act known as the National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA. This gives him, the president, the ability to detain unlawfully any American citizen he sees fit without judge, trial, or jury. Now, of course, this is illegal. It is also anti-constitutional, and they put it and disguised it under the veil of fighting the war on terror. But at the same time, the mainstream media, namely statist organizations and mainstream media companies like CNN, begin blasting images of Trayvon Martin all across living rooms and all across the United States for much of that news cycle. And all of a sudden it became about race, and it became a race card issue in which the mainstream media was propelling a message about the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman story. And even the president himself at the time, around the same time that he passed the illegal National Defense Authorization Act, he even made a specific comment personally likening himself to Trayvon Martin, preventing George Zimmerman from getting a fair trial, and already putting it in the minds of Americans and perhaps the jurors that would be trying George Zimmerman that he was guilty before he was even represented by an attorney in a court of law, which is your constitutional right. And again, this only proves again and again that the current president, Barack Hussein Obama, hates America. He also hates the Constitution, and it's why he bypasses it repeatedly. Whether or not this was his illegal invasion of Libya and the indirect murder of Muammar Gaddafi, or it's his more recent invasion of Iraq. And now, with the president recently attacking Iraq with 2 known airstrikes thus far, without congressional approval, again, an anti-constitutional act that is illegal, all of a sudden we have another similar race card being played by the mainstream media. And all of a sudden the President of the United States takes a back seat while America is divided and conquered over a race issue. Again, all of this engineered by the mainstream statist media to divide and conquer the American people, to provide a distraction to the real news and what really matters. I reported yesterday on the tragic death of Robin Williams, the truth behind Robin Williams' suicide, and notice how CNN has already finished that news cycle. In fact, it only lasted a mere 48 hours, and it's already done. Go check the major website, CNN.com, right now, and you'll notice there's not a single article of Robin Williams. They don't care anymore. They're finished with it. They've already done their interviews, and they've already pushed the agenda. It's done. You see, even Robin Williams, this comedic, famous actor with all this acclaim, that's all he was given by the mainstream media. 24 to 48 hours before they had whored him out and pushed more Hollywood sales of his films, and now they're done. Amazon hitting an all-time high with the sale of his films yesterday, just proving again that it was really just a PR campaign by the Hollywood elite and provided and used as a distraction by the mainstream media to remove President Barack Obama away from the spotlight. Now we have a second race card being played, the first one being Trayvon Martin in early 2012, now focused around Michael Brown. In fact, the same attorney that represented the Trayvon Martin family is representing Michael Brown. And of course, the race baiters, the Reverend Jesse Jacksons and similar types of race baiters, are out full frontal and on the attack right now. Again, to distract you from the real truth and the real news. Every time the president does something very serious, every time he commits an illegal or atrocious act against the U.S. Constitution, whether or not it's the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA in early 2012, or it's the illegal invasion of Libya in 2011, or it is the recent airstrikes and attack on Iraq with 2 airstrikes in recent days. They always provide a smoke and mirrors campaign from the real news so that you don't get the real truth. Again, my video yesterday just proved the point. My video on Robin Williams, far more popular than anything I've ever put out on Iraq, Afghanistan, the crisis in Gaza, because the people really don't care. They care more about issues like Michael Brown, playing the race card, Trayvon Martin, Robin Williams, or whatever other bullshit is currently playing in the mainstream media. And it's exactly why the mainstream media is a disgrace. It's exactly why I regularly shoot arrows and daggers at these statist machines, because all they are propaganda machines. And they're prohibiting the American people from seeing the real truth and getting real valuable information and actually focusing on real news and stories that matter. Now, of course, the Michael Brown shooting, a tragic event. At this point, we don't even know if the police officer was white. And they're already making it about a black versus white issue. Again, this is coming from the President of the United States, who likens himself to Trayvon Martin, so George Zimmerman can't get a fair trial. This is the same mainstream media, by the way, that painted George Zimmerman as if he was Caucasian when he was actually Latino. And they're doing the same thing now with this case in Ferguson, Missouri, these riots over the tragic shooting and killing of Michael Brown. And we don't even know the race of the police officer yet. And the same attorney of Trayvon Martin that represented the Trayvon Martin family out and about representing the Brown family this time. Again, it's a smoke and mirrors campaign, folks. Your attention should be focused on the war in Iraq, an illegal, anti-constitutional war that, by the way, the president bypassed Congress once again before intervening. It goes to show you the president's true colors, his lack of faith in government, his mistrust of our branches of government, and his overhaul of the U.S. Constitution, really shredding it into pieces at the behest of the American people. Keep your eye on the ball, folks. Again, all of these stories, a distraction, whether or not it's Michael Brown, it's Robin Williams, or it's Trayvon Martin. You should be paying attention to the war that the president campaigned against in 2008. Remember his anti-war campaign, his anti-war message specifically having to do with Iraq, his anti-Bush campaign of hope and change. Now the same president who withdrew troops about 2 years ago has re-attacked the same country. You know, this is the same president that made statements calling ISIS the JV team and is now striking Iraq and that part of the world with bombs. You know, I heard a commentator on CNN today say that ISIS is much more violent than Al-Qaeda in actuality. In fact, so much more violent that Al-Qaeda has publicly disavowed itself from ISIS. You see, the president having to do with helping to catalyze this terrorist organization, because again, it was the intentional manufactured game plan since the get-go. From the very beginning, it's one of the reasons why there was a failure and an intentional failure in Syria, so all of this could spill over and catalyze the ISIS movement, which has become the caliphate that makes up Iraq and Syria today. And it's exactly why we're at war. And as the commentator I just watched on CNN, it's amazing that the mainstream media is starting to pick up on this. This is not just the beginning, but we are in the midst, and the big global war has just begun. This is World War III, folks. This is the global conflagration in the Middle East we've been warning about for some time. And this is just the opening act. That bubble is about to burst. The Middle East in flames while the President of the United States plays golf, and the mainstream media focuses on race card issues like the tragic death of Michael Brown. That is the hardcore truth. Again, these same government officials, people at the White House, the President of the United States of America, and Fast and Furious Eric Holder pointing out just a few months ago that there is racial animus against the President of the United States. Again, these are the only people playing the race card. Eric Holder, the President of the United States, likening himself to Trayvon Martin. CNN wanting the name of the police officer that tragically shot Michael Brown. At this point, we don't know, because he hasn't been tried in front of a jury, which is his constitutional right, whether or not that was in self-defense or not, or perhaps was malicious, calling for his head and playing that race card repeatedly. Again, this is the truth, folks. I'm Christopher Green. Get it out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.